What kind of crimes do you think are being committed in impoverished countries?
Um, I think blood diamond crimes and drug crimes.
Okay. What kind of crimes do you think are being committed in impoverished countries?
Well, I actually think that the types of crimes that are being committed aren't going to be a whole lot different than what we see in this country, but I believe they're going to be happening at a much more frequent pace because in an impoverished country, you're not going to have the resources and the money to pay for law enforcement and things of that nature. I would say that as a whole, things like theft would probably be escalated. But again, I don't think necessarily the crimes would be any different. There would just be a whole lot more crime as a result of having the inability to stop people from doing the crimes.
In what way does corruption benefit impoverished countries?
In lots of impoverished countries, a lot of the problem is an imbalance of power, where a few people have all the political and social control over the rest of the people that are there. So a lot of times there will be corruption problems because people will take advantage of the fact that they have power over these people who either don't know their rights or don't know that governments are more effectively run in other ways.
How do you think drugs are affecting the communities of impoverished countries?
I think it raises the crime rate because people are trying to get more money to buy the drugs, and people are trying to buy the drugs, and since it's their poverty, then they can't afford it, so they rob and steal.
How do you think drugs are affecting the communities of impoverished countries?
I think drugs are one of the main reasons. Drugs are one of the main reasons that third world countries are still impoverished, because it leads to crime rate and drug usage, and that's not always good, not good at all. So if that's under control, maybe they can become first world countries.
How do you think drugs are affecting the communities of impoverished countries?
The first example I think of would be countries like Mexico, for example, that when you look at the problems with drug trafficking, it's primarily trafficking drugs to other countries where the demand is high, but in Latin American countries, usually drug use is actually much lower than it is, for example, in our country. They're selling, but often not partaking, and so we, as the American community, are driving the demand, and when demand is there, supply is there. So if we want to fix the drug problem in impoverished countries, we need to examine what the problem actually is. Is it drug use, or is it drug distribution? Because in the case of Mexico, more often than not, it's distribution, and we're the cause of the problem, rather than, it originating there.
How essential is education in impoverished countries?
Well, I believe that education is extremely important in any country, because if you're educated, then you can try to discover, by going overseas sometimes, you're going to find better ways to improve the economy, because if you're educated, you're probably going to improve science, or find ways to improve what's there, instead of military coming in and stepping in and doing all that stuff that protect themselves. But I think education is the most important.
How important is education in impoverished countries?
Yeah.
It's very important. It's important because if you look at any population of people in poverty, a large part of the reason is going to be because there's a lack of education. So once you introduce education, then a lot of times prosperity follows. And even if you look at the people in poverty in America, education is a direct way for those people to become middle class or high class citizens. And it's one of the only ways, and it's one of the only ways that's available to them to reach that level.